Welcome to the SNN Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, John Ripplinger, VP Corporate Affairs at Imaflex. John, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kate, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming out to hear a little bit more about Imaflex, and thanks to SNN Network for organizing today's event. What I'd like to do over the next few minutes with you is really give you a good overview of the company. We'll look at our core flexible packaging business that we operate in, and then jump into the agricultural side and look at a next-generation film under development that we call ADVASEAL, and it's an environmentally friendly active ingredient release film that is designed to disrupt how pre-plant crop protection products are applied. More on that shortly. Now, before we begin, let me remind you that today's remarks may contain forward-looking statements. I'm just going to wait for that slide to come up. It seems to be taking a bit of time here. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. We're just going to wait for that slide to come up. There seems to be a bit of a system problem here. Okay, so before we begin, let me remind you that today's remarks may contain forward-looking statements, and I invite you to read the Safe Harbor passage contained in the presentation before you. It'll also be available on our website following today's event. I'm just going to send a quick note to the service provider because we can't get those slides to change. I'll just send that right away. There we go. I apologize for the delay. Everything was set beforehand. Okay. I apologize. Be right with you. Yeah, now we've got something here, guys. There, we're good. Okay, so let's take a look now that we've got things up and running for Imaflex. And so turning to the company, Imaflex manufactures and sells products for the flexible packaging and the agricultural space. The company was founded back in 1994 by 3 individuals. Those individuals are still with the company to this day, and they bring in-depth experience in the extrusion business, which is the making of plastics, as well as in the converting business, which is the printing and bag making side of flexible packaging. We have 3 manufacturing facilities, 2 of those being in Quebec and 1 in Thomasville, North Carolina. Sales for 2020 were on $87 million. We are profitable. We have a healthy capital structure, positive cash flows. In fact, we're a cash generator. And for 2021, we are well poised to surpass levels seen in terms of revenues and profitability that we saw in 2020. We have already achieved the net income for full year 2020. As of Q3 year to date, we were already at 13 cents a share of net income, which is what we achieved in 2020. Now, looking at the next slide and the company a little bit closer, one of the things that we primarily manufacture then is industrial. Sorry, here we're going to get that up there. Okay, good. So in terms of the next slide, looking at the company a little bit closer, we primarily manufacture polyethylene film for converters. Converters are like printers. They take our product and they make a finished good. It could be bread bags, soil bags, wood chip bags, etc. Now, we primarily focus on the food industry to protect and preserve, and this is allowing us to be somewhat recession resistant because of the fact that we are serving this space. Now, we also take the waste that we have in the manufacturing process and we make industrial products, so garbage bags, compostable bags, Gaylord bags, bags on rolls. In addition, at our U.S. facility, we have fully converted operations. So everything from extrusion to printing and converting. And finally, we also offer agricultural films as part of our business. So that includes a full spectrum of ag films. We have traditional mulch films for weed control to increase water retention, reduce soil erosion. We have barrier films for pre-plant soil fumigation to mitigate the evaporation, reduce nuisance odors. And we also have compostable films and metallized films. We have the full range of compostable films and metallized films for crop protection and yield enhancement. And I should mention that we do have compostable and metallized films on the flexible packaging side as well. Now turning to the next slide, a key market differentiator for Imaflex is our ability to develop innovative, customized solutions. We have a staff of chemical engineers and a chemist on the hand that allow us to do just this. And we've worked with global brands over the years into the development of some of these films, including patent-protected films such as ADVASEAL. It was originally a global brand that came to us with the idea of coating a mulch film with active ingredients. In this case, it was with an herbicide, and that film would then be placed in the ground, and those chemicals would be released into the soil. So we were able to take that product and to develop a film that could receive those chemicals without harming the integrity of the film itself, so that it stayed intact. Now, another key differentiator for Imaflex is the fact that we specialize in smaller orders and quick turnaround times. We typically have about 14,000 orders a year, and we turn things around in less than 7 times. And that's a very quick lead time for the industry, and we really have kind of carved ourselves out a nice niche market that allows us to address the needs of, in some cases, smaller clientele that need those quick turnarounds, have the smaller orders, and it's been our recipe for success over the years. Now turning to the next slide, just wait for that to come up. Imaflex serves in 2 key growing markets. The flexible packaging space, valued at around $30 billion in North America. You can't go into any food store, drug store, etc., without seeing some form of flexible packaging. It's in almost every consumer market out there. The industry is growing at over 3% annually, and we've been recognized as one of the top film and sheet manufacturers in North America in terms of revenues. So that's telling you that there's a lot of smaller companies out there, and we're in the top 100, so one of the bigger players overall. Now, we also serve the mulch film market. It's valued at around $4 billion in North America, growing a bit faster than the flexible packaging side at about 5.5%. And here again, we've been recognized as a leader in the space. And in fact, this year, just this past quarter, we won an award for having some of the best agricultural films in North America. So really pleased to see that recognition. And with this recognition, with the fact that we have this ADVASEAL product under development and a macro environment that's working in our favor, we believe that we're well poised to grow the agricultural space going forward. Right now, the ag space, in terms of our films, is about 7% of the overall market. I'll just turn to the next slide. Now, when you look at the macro environment, we believe that it's working in our favor overall. As I said to you earlier, sustainability, intelligent farming are becoming increasingly important, and growers are turning to other industries such as flexible packaging or the plastics industry to help them to do more with less. And looking at some of the challenges, you have a growing world population, you have rising demand for sustainable products, scarcity of resources, changing climate and pollution, slowing ag yields due to disease. So all these factors together are making growers look at other areas, other businesses that can help them to do more with less. And we're really seeing a lot in terms of technology-wise, as well as, of course, with the films that can be applied, etc., to help them to do more again with less. Now, turning to the next slide and talking about sustainability, Imaflex is well aware of the important role our products play in protecting and preserving. In fact, we're considered an essential vendor in both the USA and Canada during the COVID days. Over the past few years, we have remained open, despite some business closures as a result of COVID. We remained open because of the fact that we are considered that essential vendor and due to the important role that we play in protecting and preserving food. Now, we're also aware of the important role that we all play in reducing our environmental footprint. And Imaflex, as I mentioned to you earlier, reuses all of the polyethylene scrap that it produces in-house. In addition, we buy from our extrusion competitors the scrap that they have, and we use that scrap in the development of industrial products such as garbage bags. So we're extending the life cycle of the resin itself. Now, we also have a staff of chemical engineers and a chemist on hand that are continuously working with resin manufacturers and our customers to develop new, innovative, eco-friendly solutions, films that are thinner, lighter, yet as durable as your traditional mulch films. We are also able to work with chemically modified resins and resin blends from plant-based sources or polylactic acid that are fully compostable and recognized by the American Society for Testing Materials. We get a certification. It's called the ASTM 6400. So we have compostable films both on the flexible packaging and on the agricultural side. And we know that market is growing and will continue to grow. And so with that staff of chemical engineers and chemists on hand, we are preparing ourselves for the future to ensure that we have a lineup of compostable products for the clientele that we are serving. Now, we've also been recognized for the work that we do in other areas in terms of, for example, our electric or power consumption. The Quebec government has recently given us an award for basically heightening the performance of our equipment while reducing our power consumption. So we did the equipment upgrades. We received the award for the fact that we were able to reduce the power consumption while at the same time heightening the performance of our equipment. So very pleased with some of these things that we've been receiving in terms of our recognition, etc. Now, ADVASEAL, of course, is really one clean technology that I want to talk about a little bit more in detail, and it's really positioned to disrupt the industry. It uses 95% less chemicals than the traditional practices of chemical fumigation. So let's take a look now at ADVASEAL. Just going to the next slide. So ADVASEAL is an active ingredient release film that has been designed to replace the wasteful and harmful practice of chemical fumigation. So what growers currently do today is they come along with a tractor and they fumigate the land. They inject chemicals into the soil. They inject pesticides, so nematicides to kill the insects, herbicides to kill the weeds, fungicides to kill the fungi. This is subject to overdosing, underdosing. It requires protective gear, and frankly, we believe that a new approach is necessary that is more efficient, more cost-effective, and environmentally friendly. And this is really what ADVASEAL is all about. So with ADVASEAL, non-volatile crop protection products, those pesticides I just discussed, the nematicides, the fungicides, and the herbicides, are coated onto a mulch plastic film. That plastic film is then placed on the ground, and growers are doing this every day when they're farming right now. The only thing is the film they would place on the ground has this protective these products on it, these chemicals. Once they place that film on the ground, moisture rises from the ground and it activates the release of the chemicals into the soil in a very safe, timely, and cost-effective manner. It is allowing growers to become more productive. It decreases their costs because they're using much less chemicals. They don't have to do the fumigant, so they're removing steps in their pre-plant sanitization process. And it's obviously good for the environment. You're using much less chemicals. In fact, in a trial that we did, the grower standard called for 660 pounds of chemicals per acre. We were using less than 35 pounds of chemicals per acre. So a huge benefit for the environment comes with ADVASEAL as well. Turning to the next slide. So when we look at ADVASEAL, we conducted two trials. One was an efficacy trial, and the other was a release study. Both of these trials were done by independent parties, and the efficacy trial was designed to look at the chemicals themselves that are coated on the film. Are they releasing into the soil in the manner that we expect? Are we achieving soil sanitization in the manner that we expect? And secondly, the objective was, is the plant growth, yield, and quality comparable to the current grower standards. So we had basically 2 plot areas where we had the film that was using the ADVASEAL product, and another area that was the grower standard. We were using tomatoes as the crop of choice. It's one of the most widely grown plants in the world, and so we went with those 2 scenarios there. And what we found, and it was announced in numerous releases, is that the film was releasing the crop protection products into the soil in the manner that we expected, and we were achieving soil sanitization as we expected as well, which was one good checkoff mark. We achieved that. Secondly, the plant growth, yield, and quality we found was comparable to the current grower standards. So with that news, we believe that ADVASEAL can likely be used for most fruits and vegetables requiring pre-plant soil fumigation. So what we did next then is we did a release study. Now the release study is required, and it's one of the most important things for the US EPA because it looks at safety. You can have a product that works, but if it's not safe, forget it. You're not going to get it approved. So with the release study, what we had to be able to show is that we respected what they call the pre-harvest intervals that the US EPA has in place. And what that is exactly is you've got chemicals that enter the soil, and between the time that the chemicals enter the soil and the time the crop is picked for safe human consumption, there has to be a certain lapse, a certain period of time between those 2 pointers or markers. So what we had to prove is that there was sufficient time of the release of the chemicals that we had going into the soil and when the crop was picked for safe human consumption. And what we found, again, the independent study was conducted for us, found that we met all of the pre-harvest intervals required by the US EPA. So very pleased to say that the product was found to be safe. So what we're doing now is we're just working with the US EPA, and we're developing the registration package. That should be completed in the coming period, and we will be able to submit that to the US EPA for approval. Now, approval can take up to a year. It could be less, it could be more, but it is around 1 year from what we understand. Now, turning to the next slide, just in terms of our confidence level for approval of ADVASEAL. We had a predecessor to ADVASEAL. Originally, when that global player came to us, they had the idea of coating a mulch film with an herbicide. We were able to do that, develop the plastic film, get the EPA approval for the ADVASEAL herbicide film. And as we were going along, what happened is that growers were telling us you should have a one-stop shop. So you should have all the chemicals on the film, herbicides, nematicides, fungicides. And so that's what we have right now. So with the herbicide film was approved, but we realized that we really had to have a one-stop shop with all of the chemicals on the film. Otherwise, growers would still have to fumigate. So what we're doing now is we're going back to the EPA, and we're saying, look, we've got the trials that we've just done. They're shown to be safe. It's shown to be effective, the film, that it works, that it sanitizes the land, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're asking for is the fact that we just want to have this new improved ADVASEAL film approved that includes all of the active ingredients. So given that, we're pretty confident that we're in good position to see ADVASEAL approved on a go-forward basis. So turning to the next slide, in terms of the financials, Imaflex really has had a transformational year in 2020. We grew stronger by almost every measure. We increased our revenues. We significantly enhanced our profitability. Revenues were up about 7%, gross profit up 51%, net income up 300%. And this growth has been driven by our multi-year capital investments. So over the past few years, we've purchased a printer and an extruder for our U.S. operations, which significantly enhances our capacity, our capabilities. It allows us to become a one-stop shop for our customers, offering a much more higher value-added product, including everything from extrusion to printing and bag making. And we're also benefiting from our increased scale, which significantly reduces the cost of labor and overhead. Now, turning to the next slide. The growth that we saw in 2020 continued into 2021. You're seeing right here the results for 2021 year to date. We saw significant gains this year in terms of revenues, in terms of profitability for the first 3 quarters of 21. EPS, or earnings per share, for the first 9 months is already at levels that we saw in 2020 for the full year, and we're becoming a cash generator, which we closed the 3rd quarter with over $8 million of cash in the bank. So we're well positioned to continue to build out the business with these positive tailwinds behind us. Now, in terms of the stock, there's around 52 million shares outstanding. About 56% of those shares are held by insiders, so insiders are fully aligned with our shareholders. Market cap is around 65 million and growing, and we've got analyst coverage by Beacon Securities. Very happy to have had their coverage. They've been on board since about 5 years since I joined the company, and they're very supportive of us, so very pleased to have them covering the company. Looking at the next slide, in terms of the management team, we have a strong leadership team. As I mentioned to you earlier, the original founders are still with the company. They bring deep industry experience in extrusion and converting. We have a staff of chemical engineers and a chemist on hand that work closely with our suppliers to develop new innovative solutions. And we have a finance team made up of individuals from blue chip companies that are focused on ensuring that we grow, but that we don't just grow, but we grow profitably. Looking at the next slide then, Imaflex is a recognized industry leader serving very attractive and growing multi-billion-dollar markets. The macro environment is working in our favor. Sustainability, intelligent farming becoming increasingly important. We are profitable with a healthy capital structure and strong cash flows. We have a unique business model with a strong core flexible packaging business that is profitable, growing, and becoming a cash generator. We also have ADVASEAL that brings significant upside potential with crop protection and EBITDA margins in the 30-35% range. So really, it's a win-win for all: Imaflex, customers, and the environment. So with that, I'll close off the presentation here, and we'll open the lines up for any questions. So the first question that we have is, what's the vision for the company over the next 12 months? Well, what we want to be able to do really over the next 12 months and going forward is to continue to build out the business. As I mentioned to you, we have some positive tailwinds behind us on the flexible packaging side. We want to continue to utilize that new equipment that we purchased, and that includes the printer and the new extruder, which brings more capabilities, et cetera, allows us to move up the value chain, offer our customers a one-stop shop, and that means everything from extrusion to printing to bag making. We also, over the next 12 months, want to continue to focus on ADVASEAL. ADVASEAL, the registration package, will be submitted, and we could be submitted and approved within 6 months or not. So we have to ensure that we've got the rollout strategy in place, because that, as I said to you, could be a potential game changer, not only for the industry, but for the company as well. And in addition, as I mentioned, we're a cash generator. We could look at some possible equipment purchases going forward to enhance our business a bit more. Those purchases could be a printer, they could be an extruder, and we could possibly look at a small tuck-in acquisition if it makes sense in terms of size, fit, and ease of integration. What's most important to say is everything that we do will be done in a prudent manner. We will ensure that we're buying and we are growing in a profitable manner. That's very important for us. How do you see the hemp business impacting you? Well, we do sell some films to hemp growers, but it's not a big part of our business at this time. It could change going forward, but at this point we are selling some agricultural films, mostly in Colorado, but it's not a huge part of the business at this time. I'll just do a refresh here and see if we have any other questions. Okay, the next question here is, when will you submit the registration package for ADVASEAL for approval? Well, we've indicated in our recent release that we will be submitting ADVASEAL. We hope to have that done by around the end of December, beginning of January 2022. We did have a little bit of a delay. When you do the study, what we're doing right now is the ADVASEAL is made up of active ingredients, and we've sourced some of those active ingredients abroad. Now, what we're trying to do is prove the equivalence of these generic products with active ingredients that are currently on the market in the United States. By doing this, you just speed up the registration process. Now, as part of the analyses, you have to isolate some of the impurities that are associated with each of the active ingredients. And that isolation of some of those impurities has taken a bit longer than the lab had originally anticipated, but they are going forward with it. They are confident that it will be done. It has just taken a little bit more time than what we had expected. So once that's completed, we'll be able to put that as part of the registration package and submit it to the US EPA. That's the final step that we're waiting as part of the overall registration package. It's just, we call it the 5-batch analysis, looking at the active ingredients, looking at the impurities that are associated with them, and then once we've identified those, we'll be able to submit that with the registration package, and away we go. So that should be done by, let's say, by the beginning of 2022. I'll check for another question. Well, I think that's all the questions we have today. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to hear a little bit more about Imaflex. And should you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My coordinates are on today's presentation, the last page, and also available on our website at imaflex.com. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy your day.